Hello, welcome to Benji's Films. Today we're going to show you how to turn this into this. Now, typically you want to do this right after you harvest it. It's easier to skin and all. We were busy, we didn't get to it. So we're about a month later, but we're still going to do it. It's just more work. So stay tuned and watch what we do.
I highly recommend that throughout this whole process you keep another finished skull by your side. That way you can tell what holes are natural and what ones aren't.
So the first step is to get it all the hair and hide off as much as you can. Now the next thing we're going to do is put it in the boiling water, and then this will loosen up anything that's not there. Now you'll notice I like to use a big knife. I've been using a big knife for 20 years. I'm just used to this 8-inch blade. I keep it sharp. It works pretty well. I don't recommend you use this, but that's what works for me. So we're doing the next step now. We're boiling the heads, and the last time we took the skin and hair off, everything that was on the outside. Now we're going to try and clean it all up by doing it in boiling water, and we'll clean the brains out and everything and make it all nice before we put the white stuff on. And so that's the next step. And my son would like to have boiled brains for supper, so we might pull those out and try them. Ugh. That's just a joke. We're trying to experiment. Some people wrap them at the bottom to keep it better, and this one we're not wrapping since it's my other son's and he doesn't live at home. It doesn't matter. So we're going to try it out. So
Alright, cut! So, as you can tell by the video, we made a mistake. Unfortunately, the pot wasn't big enough for this whole skull, so the nose piece broke off. However, there are a few things you can do to stop this from happening. The first is get a big enough pot that will fit the whole skull. But if you do not have a big enough pot, you can take a board or a pole and set it on top of that pot, and then rest the rack on top of the pole, and that way the whole skull will be submerged in water, but the nose piece will not touch the bottom of the pot. And then lastly, another thing you can do is remove the nose piece. We watched some videos and did some research, and we saw some guys take off the piece and then glue it back on afterwards. So now that we have ours off, we're going to keep it off until the end of the process and then show you how to put it back on. Okay, so we did the skinning, we did the boiling, and we did the pressure washing. The next step is to get a pot and fill it with warm water and put in some dish detergent. You want to mix that together and then take the skull and set it in the water. You want to take this pot and set it somewhere where it will stay warm. We are putting it on one of our stoves. That way it won't be too hot and it won't be too cold, but just right. So, what is the solution for? The dish detergent and the water combined will help take the grease off the skull and allow the bleach to work better.
okay, we're back to the next phase of working on our Western mounts. We've got an old one here we're going to experiment with. This one I shot years ago. This was this year's, and we had it setting in the soap water solution for a day and a half to get all the grease off. We used just regular liquid dish detergent, and that seems to have cleaned it up nicely. Today we're going to work at applying our volume 40 cream peroxide developer. If your wife uses this for hair, you may have bottles sitting around. If not, you can get it on the internet pretty easily. You've got Amazon Prime, comes in a day or so. So we're going to to work at that. Now what you're going to have is some gloves, because this stuff can burn you and you don't want to do that. So we're going to put our gloves on and protect our hands. You also don't want to spill it on yourself, it will burn. But if you want to use the leftovers to bleach your hair, you can do that too. Now, when we did it last time, we wrapped this with tape and the plastic wrap, and we did it 2 different ways. There was no significant difference, so you can do that if you want, makes you feel better. But for that application, we didn't see any noticeable difference. Now, today we're going to do it because we don't want this to get on the antlers, because it will bleach the antlers. And these especially have a nice dark look to them, and we want to keep that just for character. If you want to lighten your antlers up, feel free to experiment that way. So we're going to use just some regular black tape. You don't have to go up real far with this, but just cover it enough to keep that stuff off. And you also just be careful. There's different ways to do it, but just take care when you're putting it on that you don't splash it all over the antlers. This buck here I shot 12, 13 years ago, and basically we just let it sit outside for a couple years till nature took all the junk off. Now if you're fortunate enough to have the bugs to do that, they'll do it pretty quickly and clean it up beautifully. We don't do enough to make it worth our while. Also, you'll notice this one has no, the nose pieces broke off years ago. This one, they broke off while we were working on it. Another thing, when you're setting it down in the pan, try to have a pan deep enough so that it doesn't snap those off, but we're going to glue those back on later. We've got the pieces here. These pieces here are long gone. Some mouse probably ate them. Alright, so we're going to pour some of this in a container. You can use the lid. This gives me a chance to use a little bit more at a time. So I've got myself a big brush. Be liberal with this stuff. You can do more than one coat. We're going to start with one. And well, I'm sure we'll do some more as time goes on, just to see how it works. So I've done the major stuff with a big brush. Now I'm just going to get in the nooks and crannies with a little brush that I didn't get before. Hello, Carson. You want to help out? Carson here, his goal in life is to fetch. If I threw this antler, he'd probably bring it back. Again, use your big brush to get the larger spots. Giving that a good coat, we're going to let it set. Now we're just going to touch up the little pieces that broke off before and get them bleached out nicely, and then later on we'll glue them back.
Okay, so the next step after the bleaching is to let the skull dry. We gave our skull 2 coats of bleach and then let it dry for 3 days. After that, we got some hot soapy water and cleaned off the excess bleach. And finally, with a DeWalt grinder and a wire brush wheel, we cleaned off the teeth.
Here we have the finished product. Remember, the first thing we did was took the flesh off, and then we boiled it and pressure washed it and cleaned it out. Then after we pressure washed it, we put it in a soap solution to get all the oils off. That worked pretty well. Then we did the peroxide mixture to whiten them up, and that looks pretty good. Again, we had nose pieces that broke off. We've glued them back on. Still working on that to make it perfect. but we were pretty impressed with the results. If you also remember, we were messing around with an old skull. This one I actually shot back in 2008. So it's a pretty old one. This cleaned up pretty good. It had some broken pieces that we don't have to fix, but that's okay. It came out pretty well. By comparison, this is another older skull that we did not do. And we may do some more with that. We like the way the results on this came out, so we may try some of the other older skulls just to mess around. So that's the process, and those are the results. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to make in the comments below. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.